and relationships to our family, our work, and our view of ourselves. Father Nicholas is the priest at St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, and Dr. Roxanne is a licensed clinical psychologist who uses her extensive training in private practice. Questions are welcome by calling 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-2346. Here now is Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Louhs. We are always happy that you take the time to join us on this Tuesday evening, or if you're listening to this down the road as a podcast, as I know many busy working parents and adults may be on this Tuesday evening. I know I'm usually jumping in from dinner and cleanup and homework and running around. So thank you for being with us tonight. I'm Dr. Roxanne, for those of you who don't know me, and usually I'm with Father Nicholas. We co-host this show really as an extension of our ministry. It's our attempt at sort of merging the principles of faith along with the study of human behavior to really better equip us in managing everyday issues that we all run into as we try to live our faith in this life. Father Nicholas is actually away speaking at a retreat this evening in Pittsburgh, so shout out to him if he's listening. I know he's with us in spirit. And as always, we do want to remind you this is a live call-in show. So if the topic we're talking about tonight has you thinking, has you asking questions in your mind, please ask them out loud, because chances are if you're thinking them, other people are too. We'd love to hear from you. You can give us a call anytime throughout the show by calling us at 1-855-237-2346. Again, that number is 855-237-2346. You can also send us a written question or comment throughout the show by emailing us at ask@ancientfaith.com or in the comment section as the show streams live on Ancient Faith's social media pages. And don't forget, you can always ask anonymously. And finally, if you are downloading this show as a podcast, we do thank you for joining us and making us a part of your day. We do want to remind you, as always, about our encouraging messages that you can find on social. If you are on social media, you can find us all under the heading of the Louhs, and that's Louhs. And jump on our website if you want to receive those in your inboxes every day. All you have to do is put in your email box and click subscribe, and you will find some encouragement, just a little bit to get you through the day. I know sometimes we go back and read through some of the things that we've written, and it's like a reminder even for ourselves of things that we just need to know. You can never reread these things enough because life can be hard. And so tonight we're going to talk about something that's hard for many of us as adults, for our children, just in life. We're going to talk about friendships, relationships, and specifically what it looks like to have Christ-centered friendships. And here to speak with us tonight is Sylvia Farage. Sylvia is a wife and mother to 3 children, ages 17, 14, and 11. She holds a master's in social work with a specialization in families and children. She is a PsyD candidate and has worked as a licensed social worker for over 15 years, specializing in couples counseling, individual counseling, and issues related to anxiety and stress disorders throughout her practice, known as Christcentered for Counseling. Sylvia is also certified as a peace of mind facilitator through the Mental Health Task Force Assembly of Canonical Orthodox Bishops. She is a servant at St. Augustine and St. Monica Coptic Church in Warren, New Jersey. And she's the founder of the Archdiocese ministry Coptic Women Fellowship, which enriches, supports, and strengthens women and marriages across the country. And we can speak to that ourselves. She's been a wonderful and experienced speaker all over the country. She does a lot of psychoeducation, a lot of talks to Coptic and Christian Orthodox communities, like I said, everywhere in the country. So Sylvia, we're super excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. We love having you. So let's dive into this topic. What would you say are the sort of important qualities, that we need to be looking for in people that we are pursuing friendships with?
So, I could we could say all of the normal stuff, right? So trustworthiness, loyalty, honesty, all very, very important. Loyalty is actually my moral compass, so to speak. But I think character is the core of a person. I really do. It's something that comes from deep within, and it causes people to have these patterns of behavior. So I think you want to look for people who have very strong character to associate with. And a person with strong character is adaptable, is they can admit that they're wrong, right? And they learn from their mistakes. A person who can take some criticism, who can work with other people, that is so important. So the other stuff that we kind of get caught up in, and let's, not focus on a person's charming exterior or their sense of humor, which is great, or their charisma. Instead, focus on that deep inner quality, that character, because that's who they really are. Your character kind of creates what happens to you in life. There's a famous quote by the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. He says, "Character is fate. Period." It just predicts where you're going to end up in life and how you're going to live your life. He also said, I think he's famous for saying the only thing constant is change. So people are usually familiar with that one. But character is fate, truly. So I think someone of a strong moral character is who you want to hang out with.
And what a beautiful thing to sort of dive into, starting deep, because so often, as you said, we are not always looking at a person's depth of character in the beginning, and we are attracted to the very charming qualities, or maybe even the surface ones. And I was talking to somebody just yesterday, and she said, I was attracted to my friend because, he spent an hour, reading his devotions every morning and praying. And she said that was the most inspiring quality to me. But she said, as we developed this friendship, he had a hard time any moment that I was difficult. Anytime I was less than patient, anytime I wasn't acting as my best self, he seemed to have a hard time making room for me, and seeing my vulnerability underneath those moments, that maybe in my difficulty, I was struggling with stress, or maybe under my difficulty, I was struggling with a little bit of fear or anxiety, and it became a source of judgment. And he really couldn't sort of, dig deep to kind of make space for me, see my vulnerability, and support me in the ways that I needed. And so, how often do we sort of see one quality in someone and go, okay, you're a check in the right direction. But as we see their character morph, and evolve, we see, wow, are they adaptable? Can they admit the wrongs? Can they make room for us? And can they support us? I would say, when we're less than our best selves, because those are the moments that I think challenge relationships. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. You kind of, I think what's really, so this is different for me now, what I'm looking for, right? And what I value in a friendship. But ask 20-year-old Sylvia, she was attracted to the other stuff. So the charisma, the sense of humor. So I think, as we say in liturgy, in wisdom, let us attend. That grows with wisdom, and in time, the things that we look forward towards and the things that we don't tolerate as much. But I think it's really important that sort of when, like the person you were talking to, when you're in this sort of upheaval of emotion, right? And you need to speak to someone, or you want to speak to someone, who's that first person that comes to mind, right? So who's the person that you feel safe with? Who's that person that shows up and has the willingness to sit in those muddy puddles with you? Not fix it, not tell you how blessed you are because all the other lists of everything else that you have in your life, but just sort of sit in the mud with you. That's the friend. I think that's the greatest honor, to be able to sit and hold space for someone in their vulnerability. No judgment, just be side by side with them until they say, hey, you know what? I'm ready to get out of the mud. It's so important not to attempt to fix it, even if you're well-intentioned, but just sort of sit beside them till you're ready till they're ready, and you can sort of like shine a little beacon of light for them. I lost my dad a year and a half ago, and I know your father passed as well. I don't remember much of what happened that day, except who was there beside me in the mud, right, as we buried him. That is forever seared in my memory. The people that showed up and that stayed, I will never forget. I'm going to actually shout out Father Peter. He was there from beginning till the last person left at that meal. He did not leave. He was just there in the space. His, I think, probably 2-year-old daughter at the time was fussing. It was such a long day because we Orthodox do everything very long. And hours and hours, he stayed so he knew, so I would know I'm here for you. And that just stays with me. Those who sit in the mud with you, not trying to say, get out, it's not that bad. I think those are important people. So
yes, so that character trait of non-judgment and no pressure to be anything different than we are in whatever space we're in. And that's hard to find.
It is. And and that circle becomes exceptionally smaller as you grow older, right? I used to be very inclusive. I didn't have a lot of family here growing up. So I overcompensated in friends. And I'm very extroverted, as you know, and enjoy meeting new people. But, I have, as a birthday party, I'd invite everybody because I never wanted anyone to feel left out. And I realized that that's not what it's about. It's the people that somehow lift me up, or if they're good for my husband, or if they're good for my kids. Somehow they have we have to serve one another in that way. So it was not about the quantity anymore. It really was about the quality and of friendships that I can sit in the mud with, that they give me that honor, and vice versa. But it is hard to find.
That's beautiful. The serve each other, Also what a beautiful quality to look for, and if the Sylvia now could talk to the Sylvia at age 20 or age 15, are we looking for, somebody who serves, somebody who's non-judgmental, and somebody who just allows us to be in whatever space that we're in? I mean, wow, we would never be able to define those things, No,
you just want to fit in at that age, right?
Right. If you like me, then I like you. We're friends.
Yeah, we're friends.
The condition is that I'm accepted. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's define a friend, right? Because that term can be used loosely.
Yes, it is. I have 2,000 friends on Facebook, and I'm maybe friends with 12. It is used very loosely, but we've all heard, you can accurately predict where you're going to be in 5 years. We say this to our kids. We've all heard it growing up. The answer is simple: the company you keep, right? Mm-hmm. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you where you'll be in 5 years. So the people you associate with have a major impact on and influence on you. And it's really important to choose the right people, the people who are like-minded, right? I respect differences and learning from one another, but I think when we say friends, it's those that you keep close to your vest, those that you are comfortable with having your children stay at their house or be in their home because you know their mom and dad have the same like-minded values that you have, right? So I think that's a great way to measure it. But Christ-centered friends, they're the ones that willing to serve selflessly, that you can learn from, that they've got tons of empathy and compassion and forgiveness, right? The ones that you can squabble with, and the next day it's like nothing happened. You know that the love never changed, right? That they accept you, they meet you where you are. So I think that is a friend that you want to keep. That is a friend that you want to make. These are relationships to invest in, and those are for the long haul, right? They offer you support that you really would not be able to find anywhere else. Like my 17-year-old son says, excuse the teen lingo, but he's like, and I think he was trying to plan a milestone birthday for me once with everybody. He's like, didn't know the guest list because, again, the names are endless. He's like, you know too many people. But who are your dogs, Mom? Like, who are they? I'm like, okay, it was like 4 or 5 people.
That's beautiful. Even he could recognize that. Yeah, he could recognize, that we all have tighter circles.
Absolutely.
And I think something you said a few minutes ago is super important. People that we can learn from, right? That if there's someone in our life who inspires us to be better, wouldn't that define, in some ways, a Christ-centered friendship, sort of kind of provoking the best version of Christ within us? That that person, by their ways, by their character, whomever they are, whether they know Christ or don't know Christ, if they inspire the best version of Christ within us, could that be a Christ-centered friendship?
I love that. There's a quote by Madeleine L'Engle that says, you don't discredit people by, getting in loud arguments. I'm messing up the quote, but
loudly discrediting their ideas. Yeah, I remember that one.
But by shining a light that's so lovely that they want with all their hearts to know the source of it. And that source is Christ. So I do think it's possible. I had a beautiful story. It's a long story, but I'll give you a very brief one, the brief version. We were at a friend's house and we were at a light, and a car coming down the hill did not stop. And she hit us as hard as she was going, must have been going at least 40 miles per hour. The impact was so loud and we felt the jolt, and we were sure the car was in terrible shape. Long story short, she was intoxicated and begging us not to call the police. So I told her, you've got two choices. She kept saying, I live around the corner. I will drive myself home. I said, we'll either call the police so they'll tow your car, or I will drive your car home and my husband will follow. She was trying to throw money at us. I'll pay for it. Please, hysterical crying. But something in my husband and I said, don't do this. This woman needs help. It was God. She wasn't around the corner, of course. She was about 20 minutes away, but we got to talking. And she saw my cross and started to ask questions about God and friendship. She was lonely, and she was planning on ending her life that week. She had no one, and God put us there to stop her. So, yeah. And the message I received from her the next day was so beautiful. And that's all she needed, was that little beacon of light.
Sylvia,
you never know what God's plan is.
So beautiful, just in a moment of being your best self. I mean, you brought her into such a better dimension of her life, the depth of her character she didn't know she had, finding her purpose. On that note, I want to ask an email question that came in. It says, in both losing my marriage through divorce and leaving Protestantism to become Orthodox, I've lost many parts of my former identity and who I would consider my people. I'm still struggling to determine who I really am. And as I know, your vibe attracts your tribe. And when you find your people, you find your purpose. I also am learning to set and hold boundaries to find and keep healthy, safe relationships. All this is difficult. I'd love to know your thoughts on finding yourself, your people, and your purpose.
I love that. Your vibe defines your tribe. That is awesome. I'm going to use that.
Your vibe attracts your tribe, and you find your people, you find your purpose. Those are great.
I love that. So this person, I'm going to assume it sounded like it was from a woman. I don't know
it looks like
if she's anonymous or not. But first of all, very insightful, and it sounds like she's done a lot of work and a lot of soul searching, and you're on the right path. So your purpose is not easy to find without really leaning in and listening to what Christ has planned for you. We're all given different gifts, and we're called to use them to honor him, to glorify him. For some reason, I'm constantly pushed out of my comfort zone to do things like this or to speak to large groups. And I prefer to speak to one or two people, quite honestly. But he's like, no, I have other plans for you. So I feel that that's what my calling is. That's what my purpose is. And instead of ignoring it, I lean into it. And he seems to open every door. I love that you joined the Orthodox Church because it's so rich in fellowship. It's so rich in Bible studies, and there's opportunities every day, especially during Lent. I feel like we're serving every other day in some capacity, where there's these social interactions that you have a meal and the Word of God, and you're sitting with a lot of like-minded individuals. So you will eventually find what your calling is, what you're good at, and where you can serve. I really feel that serving, whether it's publicly or privately behind the scenes, is what we're called to do, to lift one person up somehow. I encourage you to keep doing it. It was kind of a long question, so I might have missed a few parts, but I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Roxanne.
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head. The community piece, I think, is a huge part. Our relationships, how do they affect our purpose? If we're not safe to be who God intended us to be, we never find our purpose. Right. Because we're so busy masking ourselves in somebody else's purpose and somebody else's gifts that I almost feel like we never use the gifts he intended for us to use. I can remember, all my life, being around people, and I always kind of felt different. Still do, but I always felt a little different, than this person or that person. And, trying to find my way in who's going to be my person, whose, family maybe has the same values or what personality is kind of like mine. And it's maybe not until this decade that I've gone, hey, maybe it's kind of okay to be me, and I'm going to be a little different, and that's okay. But only then do I feel like my spiritual gifts come to life, like the things that God wanted me to do, the things that I was going to be good at, the things I'm convicted about, maybe totally different than what things other people are convicted about. But that was okay, because kind of like a big, patchwork quilt, we're all meant to do something totally different. And when we try to blend into each other, through acceptance and looking to be like what we see on the outside, I think we miss the point, and we don't really reach our purpose because we're not truly living those intended gifts. And I think that's a journey because it takes a long time. I think every decade gives us a little more confidence and comfortability. I'm sure you feel that way, Sylvia, that
how do you lose your filters as you get older?
Yeah. You're like, wow, this is me and it's great, So, but I couldn't have said that to my 15-year-old self. My 25-year-old self, there was a looking for how I could be accepted versus can I be accepted by Christ? That, if I can find that, who did you make me to be, and try to live in that path. And if I'm around someone and I can't be that person, that's like a huge sign to me. I always tell my kids now, hey, if it doesn't feel like home, if it doesn't feel like you can be yourself, in all the ways that you are, it's not the right person. It's just not the right person, because you're going to compromise yourself. We can only be around somebody so long who demands us to be something different, without at some points masking ourselves and trying to be, what's going to get us accepted. And so how would you say this is different for maybe adolescents who may be listening to this show? Why is it important for them to find these sort of Christ-centered friendships, and what may be some of their obstacles?
So I think some of the obstacles, of course, is, culture, society. What the world tells them is very different from what the church teaches. and our kids are still young and navigating these stresses of life, but without the maturity and capacity of an adult. So it's not their number one priority is to fit in somehow. And the friends at that age, at 14, 15, is so important to them. So they lead with that. It's almost like they're in their heads with us all the time. And I tell my daughter too, because boys are slightly different than girls, at least in my experience. Boys seem to have, I wrote a whole thing on this, I researched it, a harder time making these deep, meaningful connections. And it's not because they don't know how. I think it's just something that they learn as they get older, that it's not okay, right? But girls do. So if I'll ask my daughter, how many friends do you have? I have like 17 friends. I have so many, I'm good. You ask my son, who's like one or two, like people I can really open up to, right? But the most important thing, I think, and I've drilled this into my kids, is, you have to be okay with being different. Like, Mary and John might do this in their house, but in our house, this is how we do it. And just from the beginning, it's been that way. I'm not going to be okay because you want to fit in. I mean, I can't tell you how many times she tells me, you're killing my social life. I'm dead in the water because you're constantly saying, no, Mom. No one asks me to go to parties because you're like, no. They know Sylvia's going to say no. I'm like, you'll live, I promise, and you'll appreciate it. But it's hard for them to accept, but it's part of who they are. And I always say, if you're not proud of that behavior, whether I'm there or not, then something's definitely awry. So if you feel funny, if there's a little bit of discomfort, call me. I'll come get you. It's no problem. But that's your intuition telling you, this is not right. You'll find your people, and they'll accept you just the way you are.
And that's, that trust in that, what you just said, I think
Yeah.
that's huge, to really trust in that you do find your people and they will accept you as you are, and you'll come into the best version of Christ in you when that happens. And it takes different years for different people. It doesn't always happen in high school. Sometimes not college, sometimes post-college, but when you find it, it lasts. And there's something freeing about that, right? There's a freedom in that. It's not so hard. And it's interesting because I was asking my kids before the show, I was like, so what's a Christ-centered friendship to you? And it was interesting, how, concrete their answers were to begin with. Oh, well, someone who obviously loves Christ, somebody who prays, somebody who goes to church. Like, okay, let's go a little bit deeper than that. If you were to look at all of your friends, who do you think is the most Christ-centered friendship? And it was interesting because my daughter sort of named maybe the person who, is the most faithful, who maybe has gotten her into, other, Christian ministries and things like that. And my son's named somebody who truly lives the Spirit. She's generous. She's kind. She would give you the shirt off of her back. She's warm. She's empathetic. And she has a generosity of spirit that you cannot teach. And she's non-judgmental. And it was so interesting because I was like, wow, I can agree with both of you, because I really see this individual as completely living a faith she doesn't even know yet. And this one is trying to learn about her faith and put herself in circumstances where she's living. But both, if they're inspiring you to be a better person,
yes,
I consider Christ-centered. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I have some friends that I've been friends with from my youth group days since I was probably 10 or 11, and we're still friends. We happen to live in New Jersey, and we happen to pray in the same parish, and now my kids are friends with their kids. And I can tell you, it's a beautiful give and take. We learn from each other. We hold each other accountable, and I see that in my kids and their kids and my kids. Hey, get on. We have the Lent readings tonight, daily Lent readings, right? They'll text each other. and let them know, because one of my kids might say, oh, I'm still at practice or whatever. So I think that's really important, the accountability, the influence, all of the things that we fear as parents, all the bad behaviors. If the guardrails are put on at home, God willing, and we cover these kids in prayer, and the parents are like-minded, and these kids hang around same kind of kids, Christ, who lead with Christ in their lives, who try, who embody some of these fruits of the Holy Spirit, like you said, kindness and generosity and patience. I mean, I will forever treasure that and promote that friendship. So I do my best to keep my kids around like-minded kids like that. And that family, we adore. We try to do as much as we can with them because it works for all of us. That's a blessing for me. I'm not sure that everybody will come across that in life, but you certainly will meet people who exhibit the same kind of just beautiful love, that Christ-like love. And it comes out in different ways. Like, how do they serve? How do they live their lives, really? Like, take note of how they're living, not just church activities, the day-to-day. How do they treat the server, How are they patient? Are they patient with the barista? I was at Starbucks today, and I had to be patient. She was extremely tired. It was a long day, and it took her a little longer to get my order in, right? But those are the things that we should take note. How are they living their day-to-day? How are they responding to the person who cuts them off? So.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's what you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, we can do all of the things, go to church on Sunday, attend the Bible study, do the youth group. But if the very next moment there's gossip at a table and you see that individual joining in, bashing, or you see the temptation and they throw themselves right in the midst of it, or you see the, opportunity for self-absorption and that person goes right into that door and begins to boast, in my mind, those are like, okay, maybe more periphery, like I used to call it like a bookshelf. I tell my kids, we move that person down a shelf, like they're not off our bookshelf, but we're just, one step down, meaning a little bit more distance, right? Between my heart, my soul, and their influence. Because it's, it's tough, and no one is living in perfection. We're all seeking it, but to look for that day to day, I think is wise. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about some biblical examples or teachings that highlight the importance of choosing the right friends. We'll be right back.
Live with the Louhs with Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne will be back in a moment. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. They would love to hear from you.
During his darkest moments on the cross, Jesus uttered 7 statements. His words offer us principles to live by, lessons of hope, peace, and comfort. I'm Dr. Roxanne Lowe.
And I'm Father Nicholas Lowe.
And our new book, 6 Hours, 7 Lessons, is all about how Christ's light transcends our darkness.
Christ's final words have the power to bring us into the light of his love and protection, providing wisdom and direction to follow when we face our own dark seasons. Get your copy today by going to store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Live with the Louhs and Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne. Do you have a question for the Louhs? Call in now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Here once again is Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne.
Well, welcome back to Live with the Louhs. We are excited to be discussing one of my favorite topics, which is friendships, Christ-centered friendships, and how to find them, how to discern them. And here to speak with us tonight is Sylvia Farish, a good friend of ours, a licensed clinical social worker in the field, has been doing this forever, leads ministries all over the nation through the Coptic Orthodox Church, and who, if I might say so myself, inspires us every day through her support and her goodness. So speaking of a friend, Sylvia, you definitely epitomize all the things that we've been talking about this evening. So
you both as well. I love both of you, know that.
Oh, thanks, Sylvia. So let's talk about some teachings that our faith might highlight throughout the Bible about the importance of choosing the right friends. What do we hear in biblical wisdom?
Well, I mean, Proverbs 13:20 comes right to mind. So whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. It's who do we choose to walk with this life? How do we choose to navigate? And who is influencing us along the way? So throughout the Bible, he says when we walk with the wise, we become wise. So God is saying we need to choose friends who fear him, right? Who are anchored by him, who walk by his word, those who walk in obedience with him. He desires that our friends will be such people, such as yourselves, who will inspire us and draw us closer to the heart of God. And these friendships are really important, and they determine the course of our lives. I'm 100% believe that. We've got to be really mindful of the people that we choose. And there's all kinds of examples. It's like cultivating a garden, like Christ-centered relationships. They require patience and intentionality, right? Some people are shy at first. You don't know. And a whole lot of prayer. But you have to sort of surround yourself with those like-minded individuals who share the faith and the value that you have. Because they're going to impact our spiritual growth. And we'll never be able to grow spiritually the way we want to if we are hanging with the wrong crowd, if we are influenced by people who are not anchored in Christ, if that's the company that we keep, it will somehow trickle into our lives, period. So I think this is really important. Everything that we need to know is in the Word of God. And, we've read endless books. We're required to for our professions, but every answer you seek is in the Word of God. So, Proverbs 13 clearly states it.
I love that. And Jesus even talks about the friends of the paralytic, and
yes.
Praises that, how many of us have friends that if we can't get the help we need are going to go to get us on the roof.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, it really, and, I think about, I always tell my kids, as iron sharpens iron, so also are we called to sharpen each other. I mean, at the end of a day, at the end of a week, at the end of a year, can you say that your friends sharpened you? I mean, how did they make you better in some way? And when I say better, I mean that better version of Christ within you. Because better isn't always, they made me more popular. They had more status, or they got me into the right group that I wanted to be a part of. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to be found in that, but finding that community is tough. I know a lot of people write in and say, but how do you, I know the importance of getting your kids around the right people and having the right people in your own life, but how do you find these pockets of community when you look around and you maybe don't find people who are going to sharpen you or who are going to walk with the wise to help you become wise?
So again, I think it's so important that you take note of how people live. Not everybody's out in the open and serving openly. Some people are really in the back, serving quietly or participating, but you don't even notice them. I think you just have to keep pouring yourself into these community. Community is so important. Connection is so important. There's going to be someone somewhere that you can connect with. Give it a chance. Offer a hand. See where you can help serve in that capacity with them. And believe me, you will take notice of how people live. Do they truly love their neighbor as themselves? Everybody's at a different stage in their Christian walk, but and you don't have to be at the same exact step. But the point is, you want to walk, right? That you're getting up and you're taking that step. So there are endless ways to make those connections. You know, your parish, giving back somehow. There's so many good things that you can be doing that will also give you a sense of purpose. I always tell my kids, like, your passion is when you're doing something and you light up, right? And it makes you forget your phone. You're not even picking up your phone. You are so focused and enjoying it. Those are the things that we need to find, your why. It's really essential to get to know the things that you enjoy doing and finding people to serve with. So there's so many ways to do it.
But I hear you saying serve, get involved, and experience community, right? Because that's when you walk alongside people and can study. Not that you're studying in judgment, but study to see, you know, who is someone I want to draw nearer to,
right?
For those reasons. And I had a woman I was speaking to the other day, and in light of this show, I sort of wanted to put this out there, but she was sort of talking about this transition in life where the friends that she's had her whole life no longer seem to be fitting for who she is at this stage of life. And the question of, do I move on from these history friends I've had forever, the familiar, you know, easy to be with, but not necessarily who I want to be now friends, versus sort of making friends at this stage of adult life where it may be effortful to sort of embark on a new journey with people who don't know us. And we're trying to begin a new life with, but who may feel a little bit more like who we are at this stage of life, because we grow so much, we change so much. I'm not the same person now that I was at 25 or 15 or 35. And so what are your thoughts toward adults, you know, having to sort of transition in friendship as they find more of their true identity surfacing?
So I can tell you, as I am getting older, I find that I cannot spend as much time as I used to with friendships that are not somehow deep and meaningful, or that I'm somehow learning from, right? And it doesn't mean I have to spend endless time. Like, none of us have time. I'll give you a perfect example as you're talking. I was on the phone today with one of my oldest friends, and I trust him enough to say, hey, my mom is going through a lot of changes and transitions and moves and stuff, and it's a lot because I feel like I'm kind of parenting. And, you know, I'm making these decisions for her, and I'm worried, and she's a little nervous about all of it too. And he left me with such a beautiful statement. I think this probably captures everything. He said, let peace be your umpire. If you don't have peace about it, walk away. It's somehow God's voice. I love that. I mean, if we could really live this way, let peace be your umpire. He said, St. Paul said it somewhere in the gospel, but I'm not sure where, and might have texted it to me, but let peace be your umpire. Wow.
It's so true. But that's God's direction always to us, that if I'm with you, you will have peace. And it's funny because we always come back to this, you know, difference between surrendering to a will and fighting for a dream or a goal. And I always people, you know, ask, well, do you keep fighting for something if you don't get it and you keep being met with disappointment? And my my answer and reaction is always, do you have a peace about that goal in that dream as you're meeting up against disappointment and trials and rejections and the doors keep closing, but do you have a peace about continuing to seek it? And if you do, keep going, because God's with you even in those trials, right?
Absolutely.
That's I feel that is only from his Spirit, being with us. And so I love that, because the same holds true with our friends, with our relationships. And when our friends leave us with that kind of peace, it's incredible. It's like God's voice speaking through them to us.
Yeah. I remember I spent a couple days at a conference with you, and I enjoyed every minute. When you leave, you feel full. I was full just spending time with you. So some people are just like sunshine. You want to be around them all the time. The Mary here, Martha. Not always. And it's important to look for that, really. And look, we're new friends. Not easy to make friends later in life. So that person that wrote in and it's hard to shed those old lifelong friendships. But if they're not somehow serving you or your family, it's time to grow. So I can take the good with the bad. The good has to outweigh the bad for it to be, and somehow sharpen me or sharpen my husband or sharpen my child.
Especially as you've reached this stage of maturity and identity, as you said, deep, meaningful, and learning from. And I couldn't have said that better myself. At this stage, you are looking to gain that, and I would add even fully accepting, that there is no judgment. There's no, if you can't be with someone, there's no like, well, gosh, I'm not important enough. I get it.
Right.
And to be met with that is, it's a peace. It's just peace. And I think we seek that so much at this stage of life. But look, we would have never met each other had we not left our own comfort zones, gone into this, conference where we knew literally no one. And established a beautiful connection. And so, that also I think is an encouragement and a reminder to ourselves, like, as you said, go out and serve, be in community. You never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
That is a connection, an instant one that lasts and inspires you. So, we have more questions coming in too here. So let's touch on this. How can we discern if our friendships align with Christian values? How do we know?
So I think that I heard this once. If I want to know if a man is a Christian, I'm not going to ask his priest. I'm going to ask his wife, and vice versa. You have to take note of how they live in the stresses and when their back is against the wall, when everything is sort of falling apart. How are they living? Where are they in their Christian walk? Are they someone who's already further along, or is they someone that wants to walk with you and learn from you? I think it's really important to ask certain questions like, what's the fruit of their lives? Right? So Jesus said that we would know false prophets by their fruits. And we will know those who are true followers by their fruits. And friends, don't ignore that. It's so important. So you look at the life that person, that friend is living, and the kind of life you would like to have. Is that person living it? And in 5 years, will that serve you somehow? Because our friends shape us, period. So, and again, time is like the most precious commodity. Who do I want to spend time with? Who do I want to sit in the mud with? So I think this, that's really important. We can discern Christ-centered friendships by just noticing where they are in life and how they exhibit those fruits of the Holy Spirit, how they take a hit on the chin, how they bounce back. And just, does it contribute positively to my identity? Or does it feel a little funny? Does it feel a little off? I try to teach my kids to trust their gut, because I think that's what makes me a therapist that can somehow implement some change or transformation is intuition. I've learned to hone in on that, learn to listen to my gut, my intuition. And I take it as God whispering in my ear.
Right. I mean, 100%. And I think that's so often something that we miss when we're so focused on what's outside of us, right? And I do think so often when we're in relationship or looking for friendship, we're more concerned with, am I being accepted by this person? Do they like me? Am I embarrassing myself? Am I saying something that they would disagree with? We're studying somebody else's reaction to us rather than this sort of reflective dimension of how do I feel when I'm with them?
Yes.
Who do I become in your presence, and how do I feel? Again, like that noise, we're so focused on the outside. Sometimes it's hard to know, how do I feel when I'm with you? Because we might miss that gut instinct if we're not stopping and going, how do I feel when I'm with you? And when I ask myself that question, I know immediately if I'm comfortable with you or if I'm not. It's like, and I may not have known it like 5 minutes earlier, but when I ask myself, I'm well aware that I don't feel comfortable. This doesn't feel right, or this conversation isn't one that I can connect to, or even it can't even redirect. There's so much wrong with it, right? And so, it's interesting, but I think there's a lot of tuning in that we have to do to find that gut instinct. We had another question.
And Go ahead. Sorry. Sylvia. No, that's not being judgmental. That's just, honing in on that gift that God gave us, especially women, which is intuition.
100%. After 20 years, this writer says, of being in one Orthodox church, and after 16 years of marriage, my wife threw in the towel, and the people and the priest took sides, and now I'm at a new church trying to build new friendship. What advice would you give me, to me, on moving on and trying to build again?
Oh, are you near Jacksonville, Florida? I know a great parish.
We welcome anyone in our midst.
You're gonna love it. I think just be open and don't be afraid to be vulnerable, and don't be afraid to approach. Just try. You will be so surprised at what you attract when you're open and not closed off. I really think that's important. I think there's so much power in vulnerability, so much power.
That's so
and
true.
So I would say keep trying and keep praying about it. God will put the right people in your path. Absolutely will. So there's people out there, especially in Jacksonville.
And New Jersey.
Yes.
It's definitely, new transitions are not easy.
They're hard.
Rebuilding is hard. But again, I always find that life sort of involves this certain amount of friction when it's working the way it should. When it gets too comfortable and we're not experiencing friction, it's like we stop growing, we stop becoming, we stop developing, we stop sharpening ourselves, and we don't kind of like get into reach our potential, I feel, and so I know difficulties are not, easy to kind of walk through, but I always feel like at the other side of that, we gained something in having to walk through those doors. We change, we grow in profound ways that we never could have grown without that challenge or friction or difficulty. And so, that's tough, but thank you, writer, for sending that in. I see another comment here that came up. I hear from older moms that girls float around in 9th and 10th grade and looking for friends, and that they finally settle in and find their people in the second half of high school, more like 11th and 12th grade. Is this generally true?
I would say so. It's not easy for young girls at that age, especially middle school, freshman year. They're still very much trying to figure out where they are, their identity, how they could fit in. And think about, like, you're doing this, right? And your brain is not even fully developed. So here you are navigating I remember high school. It was not easy. I was still awkward. I didn't know what I was very good at. No clue. I just wanted to be accepted. And I think as with the maturity and comes a little bit more of accepting yourself, being comfortable in your skin, knowing what you're good at, leading with your strengths. I could tell you, I watch, my daughter goes to an all-girls school, and their friend groups must have switched around, between 7th and 9th grade at least 10 times. It's just a rite of passage, right? It is what it is, but she slowly, what was that woman's comment? Her vibe is choosing her tribe, or something like that. But I love that. So that's what's happening. But I do think it comes with maturity and a little bit of, sometimes you got to fall and get hurt and learn from the things that hurt you the most, like the friends that are mean. Mean girls can teach you what not to be. There's a lesson 100%. In everything.
I love that. And, I think high school is a lot of little forks in the road, all these little tiny decisions, and we keep making a decision and a fork. And eventually we find this, group that resembles a little bit more of who we were throughout all those decisions. And I think the difference between, 9th and 11th grade, there's a lot of forks in the roads that happen. There's a lot of small decisions that are made that I think move us further away from people that were like, wow, that decision would not feel right. I'm going this way, and I think there's 1,000 little micro choices, on the journey of high school. And the hope is that, we make them well. And I think that's a lot of conversation. We got to know our values, right? And so in the final minutes, and I don't know how this happened, but we literally just went through almost an hour-long show. I have a lot more I want to talk to you about. Yes, same. Can you give our listeners some tips on choosing the right friends, just nuggets in these final moments, the take-homes, the takeaways that you want people to sort of, solidify and concretize in their mind?
First and foremost, I think we have to choose friends with similar values. I think that's really, really important. And choose friends that bring balance to areas that you might be weaker in, right? That you want to grow those blind spots. I think that's beautiful. Be open to learning from them. There's so much. I love to be with my friends that stretch me, sort of, or motivate me and encourage me to grow, because I want to grow. I want to learn. I want to grow those blind spots. But those three things are super duper important, and that they don't disrupt your walk with Christ, that they encourage it, that they sharpen it, that they walk beside you. So
I love
that's really
that.
important.
That's one of the other things my son said when I was asking him, what makes a Christ-centered friend? He said, someone who doesn't make you feel judged for what you believe. And
I love that.
Wow. Because sometimes those are challenging conversations. And he said, someone who completely accepts and makes room for your faith. And
good job, Mama.
No, that's not me. That's up there. There's those little things come down. I'm like, oh wow, that's just God speaking through kids. But same values. I love that. That means we have to really know our values and not be afraid to define them. I think for our kids, but also as adults, when we're in these sort of new pockets of stages of life, like how have our values maybe changed from our history friends that we've had, what kind of values do we want our kids exposed to? It may not be the same now as it was, 20 years ago when we were
absolutely
with those high school friends. And so I love that. I love that. Thank you, Sylvia, for your wisdom and just your generosity of spirit. You're such a light in sharing all that Christ is yearning to do through you and for all of the Orthodox Christians around the world. You're just doing a great job.
Thank you. As you.
We look forward to having you back because I have so much more I want to say, probably offline. I'll be texting you.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
So I want to also thank our producer, Matushka Trudy, who just does a beautiful job with this show and for Ancient Faith. She's amazing in more ways than you'll ever know. She's behind the scenes. And Simon, we're just grateful for you all and for all the wonderful things Ancient Faith is doing. We look forward to being with all of you next week. Stay strong in your walk of faith. And don't forget to join us Tuesday, 8 p.m. We have a brand new topic we'll be diving into. Stay strong.
Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne are the authors of the book Renewing You, a priest, a psychologist, and a plan, which can be purchased at store.ancientfaith.com. Their daily inspirational messages can be found at thelouhs.com/subscribe. Be sure also to search for The Louhs on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Live with The Louhs is a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.